Luke 21, 25 to 36. Today we'll finish off this passage with verses 34 to 36, so the final paragraph. And it's a bit longer today, but it forms a nice section, so I wanted to keep it all together. So our first verse, verse 34. Prosekete de heautois me pote, barethosin humon hai cardiai en cry pale kai methe, kai merimeneis biotikais, kai episte ef humas, eif nidios he hemera ekene. All right, so this first verse, interestingly, doesn't have any punctuation, for one thing. So it actually finishes, the complete thought finishes in verse 35, the second word in verse 35. We have a few verbs here, two subjunctives and an imperative. And that's one of the reasons why this section makes sense to keep together, is because there are two imperatives that sort of is Jesus exhorting those he's speaking to action based on what he has said previously in this passage. So pros ekete, so that's a present imperative, okay, and it has that, it's active, and it has a second plural ending, that te ending, and it's from pros echo, which sort of means to hold to. So we might say take heed, or watch, or what I really liked, I think it's the Net Bible translation, is be on guard. And I'll actually translate this with the de heautois as well. So heautois, it's the dative plural. The sensitive is with regard to yourselves. And the way the Net Bible translates it, which I really, really like, is be on your guard, right? So it's more idiomatic English, but I think it captures the sense of what proseke heautois is. And again, with de, often I won't translate it if it doesn't have that sort of contrasting or definite additional sense. So I'm going to translate these two words here as be on your guard. All right. And then we have our next verb, barethosin, which is a subjunctive. It's an aorist subjunctive, passive, and it's third plural. See the sin ending. So we have that theta that's telling us aorist passive, and then we have the sin telling us the third plural, and that lengthened, connecting vowel, the O there. So it's from bareo. And so this word means to weigh down. So as a passive, it's be weighed down, so that, and then I'm going to keep on going here because of how long this verse is, and translate words around it to help make better sense of what's going on. So we have a subject here, humon hai cardia, so your hearts, is the subject here of this verb. And me pote is sort of, so it's kind of like lest your hearts be weighed down. And then we have a really long prepositional phrase. And by really long, I mean it goes until here. So it's quite a long one. And it's N. So in or maybe with. So weighed down with makes better sense. And you'll see that each of the endings here is dative. So we have crypale, dative singular, methe, dative singular, and then we have merimenes, biotikais, which is dative plural. Okay, and so the first word, I had to look up. I didn't know it offhand. So it means dissipation or drunken dissipation. So it's like that behavior that goes with being drunk. So overindulging, that sort of thing. I'm just going to go ahead and translate it with dissipation. And methe, which you might be able to hear meth for like methylated spirits, okay? So it has to do with drink, alcoholic drink. It seems to be translated mostly with the word drunkenness, okay? And then merimenes, biotikais. So merimenes, the cares. And biotikais is an adjective, but we'll probably want to translate this more like it's a genitive. Sort of has that sense of daily life. So the cares of daily life is how I'm going to translate it. So lest your hearts be weighed down with dissipation and drunkenness and the cares of daily life. And we have our next verb, which is an aorist subjunctive, and it's third singular, and it's from episteme, which means to come upon. And here we have an example of when you have the compound form of a verb, right? And then the compound is followed by the same preposition. So we don't really need to translate that twice, but the idea is come upon. So, and he, she, or it comes upon you. We know that that's going to be that day is the subject of this verb because it's nominative. Okay, that day comes upon you. And then we have this word eiphneidios. Eiphneidios, it's also an adjective. It's in a predicate position. But we have a tendency here to translate this word adverbially. It sort of has a temporal sense about it, so it makes sense to translate it adverbially as suddenly. So, and that day comes upon you suddenly. And then we go into the next verse to complete the thought. So let's just go ahead and complete the thought. Hos pages, which is as a trap. Okay. And there's a bit, there's a textual variant around here with the word gar, which is in verse 35, and where it should be placed. And whether this is actually completing the thought of the previous verse or is actually sort of belongs with the verb in verse 35. So that's one of those things that you might want to look up in commentaries and see what others say about it. It seems likely to me that it was that the reason why it's the gar is where it is because it is alluding to an Old Testament quotation. But that's for you to decide. I'm just going through the text and not all of the surrounding scholarly discussions. All right, so let's read through the rest of this verse. Epe salusatai gar epi pantas tous kathemenus epi prosopon passes tesges. All right, so where are our verbs here? It's just this first word here is our proper verb. And it is a future indicative middle compound form, it's third singular, of ep eis erkomai. Which has two prepositions at the start of it, ep and eis. So it will come upon is sort of the sense, or come upon into, really, if you want to think about it, the effect of both of the prepositions. But come upon's probably good enough. And we can see here that it's also, the epi is repeated, so we won't repeat the thought in our translation. Gar is a postpositive, so it always comes second in a phrase or in a sentence. It cannot be the first word, but we would translate it first. For it will come upon, and then all. To, so we've got here a participial phrase, all, who, and here this is a present middle participle, and it's masculine accusative plural from kathemai, all who dwell, upon, so another prepositional phrase, upon the face of all the earth. Okay? And then our final verse. Agrupnete de en panti Cairo, de omenoi hina, katiskusete, sete, ek fugain, tauta pantata, malanta, genestai kai stathenai, and prosthen to huyu to anthropu. Okay, so we start out this verse with another imperative, agrupnete. All right, so you might spot here the hoop ne, which we get our word hypnotize from. So this is actually going to have to do with sleep. So, but it's the opposite. So the idea is to stay awake. And it is a present imperative, active. The second, you can tell it's second plural because of the te ending of agrupneo. So it's a contract verb, which is why you get the a instead of just an e. Again, we'll just leave that de off because it's a little redundant in English. Okay, so stay awake in Ponte Cairo. So is it every time or season? And in fact, we might translate this a bit more idiomatically too. So I might say at all times. So pluralizing it sort of brings out that imperfective, continuous sense of the verb, because this is a present imperative. So it has that continuing nature. It's not something that's, the stay awake is like be awake continuously. So we would probably word that in the plural at all times rather than in every time, or at every time. Deiomoi is a participle. It is a present middle participle. And the oi ending tells us it's a masculine nominative plural of deomai, which is sort of like begging or praying. So praying that, so hina. And then we're going to, because of hina, we're going to be expecting a subjunctive, which is what follows, katiskusete, which is an aorist subjunctive active, second plural, again with that te ending, tells the second plural of katiskuo. Praying that you shall have the strength. So iskuo is related, that isk term usually has to do with strength. You shall have the strength. And then we have an infinitive. It's an aorist infinitive active, ek fugo, which is to escape. And then we have tauta, panta, ta, melonta, which is a participial phrase. So all these things which, melonta being our participle, present active participle, and it's a neuter accusative plural of melo, about to, or being about, as it's present tense. I'm probably just going to translate that about. All these things which, actually are about. Ginesthai, present infinitive, it's middle of ginomai. So about to happen. And so praying that you will have the strength to escape all these things which are about to happen, and stathenai, to stand, which is an aorist infinitive passive of histemi. Okay, to stand before the Son of Man. All right. So that is the entirety of this section. Let's have a look at my English translation. Be on your guard lest your hearts be weighed down in dissipation and drunkenness and the cares of daily life, and that day comes upon you suddenly as a trap. For it will come upon all who dwell upon the face of all the earth. Stay awake at all times, praying that you shall have the strength to escape all these things which are about to happen and to stand before the Son of Man.